UFC 309, John Jones versus Stipe Miocic for the heavyweight title. I would be lying to you guys if I said that I was excited for this card. I really am not from a gambling perspective or a fan's perspective. I think John Jones should be facing Tom Aspinall, and all of the rhetoric that he has going on where he doesn't think Aspinall is worthy, it kind of makes me lose a little bit of respect for John Jones, who I don't deny is the greatest of all time to date. I think Tom Aspinall is more than worthy of a fight. He's the interim champion who's defended his belt as many times as John Jones has. And I'm really just not thrilled that this is the main event. Stipe Miocic taking a 3-year layoff. I don't think that he deserves this fight, but nonetheless, we're here. We're gamblers. So I got the perspectives. I got the plays. Before we jump into it, hit the like button, hit subscribe. Go ahead and follow me, Funkin' Flex MMA, on Instagram. I got all of the betting cards coming out every weekend, and even though this one won't be the biggest, I'm still looking for ways to find value and spread the love, share the knowledge. So make sure you guys go ahead and follow me and check that out there. But without further ado, we'll go ahead and jump into the first fight of the night. We got a matchup between Veronica Hardy and Eduarda Mora. Well, I do think Veronica Hardy is the more technical striker. Eduarda Mora is going to be my pick for this one. I do think that she is going to look much nicer at this 125 weight class, moving up from 115, where she missed weight on several occasions. I think those extra few pounds are going to do a lot for her, and I was already impressed with some of her finishing ability early on. I know that she hasn't fought near the level of caliber as Veronica Hardy, and Veronica Hardy married to former UFC fighter Dan Hardy. I think that she does have a little bit more skill in Veronica Hardy's corner, but Eduarda Mora has that fighter mentality, that dog. She's looking for finishes, and I do think that she may be able to find one here against Veronica Hardy. Very least, I think she's going to do more work throughout the first 2 rounds, and I can see Veronica Hardy kind of coming back in the third round. Just with the technical striking looking better when both fighters are exhausted. But I do see Eduardo Mora winning this fight here, whether it be by decision or I could see an early sub. Moving along, we have a matchup between Basil Hafez and Oban Elliott, and the pick for this one is Oban Elliott. I've not been impressed with Basil Hafez, even though that split decision loss to Jack Della Maddalena really did age well, as Jack Della Maddalena is a top 5 contender in the welterweight division now, and he did go to split decision with him. I just think that Basil Hafez is really good at stalling fights, and I don't think that he's going to be able to do that with Oban Elliott. I don't think he's going to be able to get that clinch control time up against the fence. And while I don't really see much finishing potential from Oban Elliott, I do think that he is the better, well-rounded martial arts skill set, and I think that his wrestling is even better too. So where Basil Hafez's strength is wrestling, Oban Elliott's going to be able to counter that, and I think that this one's an easy pick. Third fight of the night, we have a matchup between Mickey Gall and Ramiz Brahimaj, and this is really a battle of two guys that are great at grappling. Mickey Gall hasn't looked great consistently throughout his UFC career dating back to 2015, but he has shown the ability to get submissions and to win decisions, and that is something that Brahimaj has not shown on the latter side of that. He does have great grappling and good offensive wrestling, but his striking is atrocious. And I think that Mickey Gall is going to be able to cancel out some of that offensive wrestling, just like the Oban Elliott side in the last fight. I think he'll be able to keep it on the feet and really just outclass Ramiz Brahimaj. Both of these guys at the point in their career where they could be fighting their last fight if they come into a loss. I think Mickey Gall is going to show up in his best form and bring home the win in this fight. Moving along, we have a matchup in the heavyweight division between Marcin Tybura and Jonata Diniz. And I think the pick for me in this one, guys, is going to be Diniz. Even though I was leaning towards Derek Lewis in the last fight that they had scheduled, I do think that this is a much better matchup for Diniz, as he's already proven that he can stuff the takedowns from a Carl Williams. I'm not sure if Marcin Tybura is going to be able to have the same offensive wrestling pressure that Carl Williams has. We didn't see Carl Williams really test the takedown defense until later in the fight, but to me that almost says more than if he would have only tested it earlier in the fight. And the fact that Jonata Diniz was able to stay on the feet and outland volume of strikes, really get his kickboxing game going against Carl Williams, it really makes me think that he's going to be able to not only get it going against Taibura, but also potentially find a finish in this one. So give me Janate Deniz, maybe by KO as an early degenerate sprinkle, but definitely as my pick for this week. Up next, we have a matchup between David Onama and Roberto Romero, who is making his UFC debut on short notice against Onama. He's filling in for Lucas Almeida. And guys, for me, there's not really much to say. I did happen to just check the odds right before I started filming this, and Onama is a minus 1,300 favorite. It's right around where I would think he should be for this. He's a very talented striker, and from what Roberto Romero has faced in his level of competition, this is a drastic step up on short notice. And I think that Onama should be able to find the finish and show that there's levels to this MMA game that we all love. Up next, we have a matchup between two veterans at the lightweight division. Damon Jackson stepping up to the lightweight division to face Jim Miller. And I think this one, guys, is going to look very good on paper for Damon Jackson. And not just on paper, but I think it's going to translate to a great performance. Moving up in size, I think that he's going to fill out into 155 very nicely, as we've seen him do before. And I think for Jim Miller, who's a wrestling pressure, offensive grappling, just ground and pound, get full mount kind of game plan, I don't see that working well against Damon Jackson, who's got great transitions, great ground sweeps, and I do think that he is the better striker on the feet. I think that he has the better chin, and for that, give me Damon Jackson for the pick in this one. Moving along, Chris Weidman takes on Eric Anders, and this one I'll give you guys an early scoop is going to be my dog of the week. I think that this is a great matchup for Chris Weidman fighting another older fighter in Eric Anders at 40 versus 37 years old. We got another battle of the veterans, but I just think that the offensive wrestling from Eric Anders is not going to go over well against the All-American wrestler in Chris Weidman, and I think that we're going to see the power of Weidman really have an impact on Eric Anders, and I could even see a late third round finish here. Even though I think the most likely path to victory here for Chris Weidman is decision and just, being patient, letting it come to him just like he did in the Anderson Silva fight when he won the championship. I think this is going to be a similar style fight in the sense of Eric Anders is going to be pressuring. It may not be striking, which is why it's even more favorable for Chris Weidman, because that offensive wrestling style is a great counter for Chris Weidman's game plan and those power counter shots that are going to be coming. So for the pick on this one, guys, give me Chris Weidman. Up next, we have Jonathan Martinez versus Marcus McGee, and to me, this is one of the more intriguing matchups on this card. Jonathan Martinez coming off of the split decision loss to Jose Aldo, where he actually looked very good in certain moments of that fight. We always see dog fights out of Jonathan Martinez fights, and I don't think that we're going to see anything less than that here. The key for Jonathan Martinez is going to be to work that leg just like he always does. Throw those hard, low kicks that Marcus McGee is going to take away some of the power from. But unfortunately for Jonathan Martinez, I do think that Marcus McGee is going to get it done here. I think that he just has better, quicker hands. And at 34 years old, he is indeed one of the top prospects at the bantamweight division. I just really do not see him losing this matchup here unless he just gets absolutely torn up from the leg kicks from Jonathan Martinez. I think that we might be able to see a different level of ground game from Marcus McGee here. If it does end up there, I think that we're going to see something that's been developing from him. But nonetheless, I do expect this fight to be a violence bet inside the distance, and I think that Marcus McGee is going to get it done by KO over Jonathan Martinez. The next fight, we have Mauricio Rufy versus James Lontop, and for this one, I'm going Mauricio. I think the Fighting Nerds camp is just got something magical going on there. They know what they're doing, and the preparation, they come in with great game plans, and not only that, they house a bunch of savage strikers. They focus Muay Thai, even though they're a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu gym, and I think that they're just extremely well-rounded no matter where the fight goes. We saw it in Prates, we see it in Caio Baralho, just Gene Silva. All of these guys are just putting on savage performances and finishes, And unfortunately for James Lontop, I think this one is going to be nothing short of that. He's going to be on the receiving end of that this coming Saturday. So give me the Rising Star and Mauricio Ruffi, and we'll go round 1 or round 2 finish. I don't want to label it KO or sub because with these guys, I just think they're so well rounded, it could happen either way. Up next, we have Viviane Araújo versus Karine Silva. And although Karine Silva is a minus 270 favorite, I don't know if I see any value betting on that. I do think that she's the pick for this one. I think that she, even though she has low volume on the feet, and she has shown that she can be clipped from time to time, I don't think that Araújo is going to be the one that does it. Karine Silva has amazing offensive wrestling and grappling. I think that she'll be able to get this fight to the floor very easily, and Araújo is going to be it's up to her from that position to show if she can get out of it. And at 37 years old, we haven't seen anything that shows or leads the fans to believe that. So I'm going to go with Karine Silva. I think she's the better, well-rounded fighter. And even though I don't necessarily think it may show that on the feet, it could be pretty close. When it gets to the ground, she's going to show that she's the clear pick in this one. To the featured fight of the night, we have a matchup between Bo Nickel and Paul Craig at the middleweight division. And while I love Paul Craig, and we've seen him upset the up-and-coming rising star several times, I just don't think this is the star that he's going to be able to do it on. I'm going to be betting pretty big, probably my biggest bet on this card, on Bo Nickel inside the distance. I'm just waiting to see what those odds officially are. I think that Bo Nickel probably KOs him on the feet here in the first round. That's a little degenerate sprinkle for you there as well. Nonetheless, Bo Nickel, the Penn State collegiate wrestler, I think he's getting the rising star treatment in terms of matchups from the UFC, and this is just another step on the stepping stone for the path to the top on Bo Nickel. Up next is the co-main event between Charles Oliveira and Michael Chandler, the rematch. And for this one, guys, I am a diehard Do Bronx fan, and I do think that this fight could very easily go just like the first one went. But something really is telling me Michael Chandler's coming into this fight with everything on the line. And I gotta be honest with you, it really does scare me. Michael Chandler was preparing to fight Conor McGregor, who kind of drug him around for 2 years. I do think that throughout that, Michael Chandler was preparing to have the best version of himself appear in the cage. And I think we're going to see a lot of emotion and a lot of preparation pour out against Charles Oliveira, who really did look good against Arman Tsarukyan, who is now the top contender in the lightweight division. I just think that Charles Oliveira, is going to come in a little underprepared for what Michael Chandler is going to bring to the table in terms of his explosiveness and his preparedness. He's changed around his coaching and his preparation in terms of his health and what he's investing into his health. I follow both of them on Instagram, and what Michael Chandler is doing is training like a champion. And at 38 years old, I think that time off is actually going to be a benefit for him. And I think that where he tends to come out too explosive sometimes, maybe he's able to save some of that explosiveness and eat some of the shots from Charles Oliveira because he hasn't emptied his gas tank so early. I think that if we see a fresher Michael Chandler later into the fight, then we're definitely going to see Michael Chandler win this. And as much as I hate to do it, Michael Chandler is the pick in the co-main event this Saturday. And I don't know what's next for Charles Oliveira. I really don't know what's next for either one of these fighters if they lose. Kind of bummed to see the rematch on this, but nonetheless, only one goes to the top. And I do think that Michael Chandler is the better matchup against Islam Makhachev. So for that reason, I'm going Michael Chandler as the pick. Now moving on to arguably my least favorite pay-per-view main event of the year, where we have Jon Jones taking on the old 42-year-old Stipe Miocic. And for this one, the pick is going to be Jon Jones. But I am going to, on all of my platforms, I'm picking Stipe Miocic. I'm going, if anything I bet on this fight, it's going to be Stipe Miocic, because I cannot just lay $1 on Jon Jones after the blasphemy that he's put out into the media, talking about Tom Aspinall and how he's not qualified to get a title shot and he may move down after this so he doesn't have to fight Tom Aspinall. honestly, the respect for Jon Jones is out the window at this point. I'm burning my shirts. I'm throwing the posters away. I just can't put up with it anymore. He is the king ducker, and he's done too many things in his career that have just made me lose respect for him. So for that being said, I'm picking Stipe Miocic, even though I know he's going to come out here and get absolutely obliterated after 3 years off. I just can't have anything with my name on it attached to Jon Jones any longer. So that being said, I really do appreciate you tuning into the channel. Not to ruffle some feathers there at the end, I do think Jon Jones is the greatest of all time, unfortunately, in this sport. But I will now forever root against anyone who's close to that, like Alex Pereira or Islam Makhachev. They're now my new favorite fighters, so I hope that they can surpass the legacy of Jon Jones. But thanks for tuning in this week. Stay tuned for my betting video on Friday. Make sure you subscribe, like the video. It goes a long way, guys. Check me out at Funkin' Flex MMA, and we'll see you in the Friday video.